When my billionaire father forced me to pick a mother, I chose the unlikeliest hero. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air felt electric, crackling with an unease that twisted in my gut. I stood in that lavish mansion, a world of marble and gold around me, my heart racing. All eyes were on me. Everyone waited for my choice. My hands trembled like leaves in a storm. The room was filled with whispers. My father's cold gaze bored into me, his presence suffocating. He always had a way of making everything feel urgent, like my life depended on this decision. One mother, choose wisely, he said, his voice sharp as glass. I could picture her, the woman whose laughter once filled our halls, the homemade cookies that smelled like joy. But I also saw the darkness that crept into her life after the divorce. I thought of my friends, their mothers, some bold and fearless, others gentle and worn, but all of them, heroes in their own right. He never told me about the family secrets. The silent cries and hidden scars. I could feel the doubt gnawing at my insides. Would I dare to choose the woman who barely knew my name? Or would I disappoint the man whose love felt like a cold currency? The tension thickened. My chest tightened. As I closed my eyes, a name bubbled to the surface, unbidden yet fierce. But it wasn't the name anyone expected. I felt the gasps ripple through the crowd. My voice quivered as I said it, I choose Valerie. She was the one I barely knew, the one who worked at the charity, who spoke with passion about helping others, the one who saw my hidden struggles. The silence was deafening. My father's face twisted in disbelief. My heart raced. Had I just made the worst mistake of my life? Was I really willing to take on the weight of this family, choosing a stranger over the woman who was supposed to guide me? She looked up in shock. I had thrown a bomb into the already chaotic life I was desperately trying to manage. What have you done? My father's words cut through the silence, heavy with weight. I looked at Valerie, her surprise shifting to something deeper, something almost hopeful. I felt the room spin, my palms sweaty, weariness creeping in like a shadow. Where would this choice lead? Had I really just ignited a wildfire? I turned to see my father's fury building. It was a storm brewing. I realized I had acted impulsively, but in my heart, hope flickered. Was this a courageous choice or a reckless mistake? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I could feel the weight of the room shift, the energy thick with shock and disbelief. The once warm air now felt icy, suffocating me. I turned back to Valerie, the stranger I had unwittingly placed at the center of this tempest. Her eyes flickered with confusion, but beneath that was a well of determination I hadn't seen before. It was as if, in that brief moment, she transformed from an outsider into someone pivotal, someone who might become my ally in what lay ahead. Are you sure about this? My father's voice was laced with disappointment, a steely edge that sent shivers down my spine. He seemed to grow taller, looming ominously as he took a step closer. You're choosing a woman who barely knows you over your own mother. Think about the consequences. A murmur rippled through the crowd of guests, their judgment felt like warm breath against my skin. I swallowed hard, staring into the depths of Valerie's uncertain gaze. She sees me, I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. In those fleeting moments, her existence had ignited something in me, a spark of rebellion against the idea that family could only be defined by blood. Valerie took a step forward, her voice barely above a whisper yet resonating with a quiet strength. It's okay, really. You have to do what feels right for you. Her reassurance somehow felt like an anchor amid the storm. I noticed her hands tremble slightly, revealing the rawness behind her composed facade. I can't just stand by and let you make a mistake, my father pressed, his jaw clenched. This is not just about you. It's about the family legacy. Each word felt like a wave crashing against my resolve, threatening to pull me under. This is my life, I shot back, surprising even myself with the bitterness in my tone. The sudden confrontation tasted like fire on my tongue, but I welcomed the heat. And maybe it's time for a different path. People shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between my father and me, witnessing a family drama that was perhaps too raw for their glossy lives. I could see the uninvited tension in their brows, hear the hushed murmurs questioning my sanity. My heart beat louder, each thump fueling my courage. Please, my voice softened, now directed towards Valerie. Will you be there for me? She met my gaze, and something flickered therein, understanding, a bond unspoken but undeniably present. For you, I promise to try, Valerie said, but her own uncertainty hung heavy in the air. Just as the tension began to settle, the sound of shattering glass jolted everyone into silence. My father's anger erupted, a tempest of fury as he stormed out of the room, demanding silence from the staff cleaning the mess. The chaos he left in his wake seemed to echo the conflict brewing in my heart. I turned to Valerie, who was staring at the doorway my father had just stormed through. I didn't think it would be like this, she said quietly, her brow furrowed with concern. I want to help, but I don't know how. Just being here is enough, I said, but even as I spoke, doubts gnawed at me. Beneath the surface of our budding alliance lay an endless sea of unanswered questions. What if my choice put her in jeopardy? What if my father wrecked everything we might build together? I had no map to navigate these treacherous waters. In that moment of vulnerability, a server approached us hesitantly, holding out a small plate of cookies, Valerie's creation, if I recognized the scent. I thought you might like these, the server said, and for the first time that night, I felt a small flicker of hope light up within. Valerie took a cookie, her fingers brushing against the server's, and a genuine smile broke through her anxiety. Thank you, she said, her voice warm. The simple act of kindness felt like a balm for our battered spirits. But just as hope began to nestle itself in my heart, my phone buzzed urgently in my pocket. I pulled it out, glancing at the message, feeling the color drain from my face. It was from my mother. We need to talk. I'm coming to your father's tonight. My breath caught in my throat, the weight of impending confrontation crashing over me like a tidal wave. The delicate balance I thought I could maintain teetered dangerously close to collapse. My heart raced in sync with the fear that clawed at me. What would she say? Would she accept my choice or lash out, insisting I made a grievous mistake? I looked up at Valerie, meeting her questioning gaze, and realized that this moment was just the beginning of what could become a battle not just for my future but a fight against the legacy woven by my father's ambitions and my mother's sorrow. As I held the trembling phone in my hand, I fought to steady my breath, bracing myself not just for the night ahead but for the emotional storm that was about to unfurl. The tension in the room thickened, palpable like the humidity before a summer storm. I could hear Valerie's heartbeat thumping loudly in stark contrast to the chaotic whispers of the guests around us. Their eyes bore into us, a sharp reminder that we were trapped in a game of power and expectations. I was suffocating, caught in the crosshairs of my parents' fractured universe, and yet here was Valerie standing beside me, fragile but determined. What do we do? Valerie asked, her voice sudden and urgent as if searching for a way out together. That I wanted to tell her that I didn't know, that all I had were questions swirling like leaves in a fierce wind, but I swallowed the doubt. We find a way to navigate this together. My promise felt feeble, but she nodded, clinging to it like a lifeline. As the minutes passed, the weight of my mother's impending arrival loomed like a dark cloud, thunder rumbling in the distance. I caught sight of my father, pacing back and forth in the drawing room, the frantic energy about him glinting like a knife edge. There was no denying that the battle lines had been drawn, and right now, I was more terrified of what would come next than I had ever been in my life. With every tick of the wall clock, anxiety tightened its grip around me, until finally I gathered the courage to step outside for some fresh air. The night was cool against my skin, a welcome relief. As I stood on the balcony, I could hear the muffled sounds of the party behind me, laughter mingling with chatter that felt worlds away from my reality. "I'm scared," Valerie's voice broke the silence, drawing my attention. She stepped closer, her fingers tucked nervously into the pocket of her dress. "What if your mother can't accept this?" I took a first deep breath, grateful for the honesty we were sharing. "Then we'll have to find a way. It's my life, Valerie," and I paused, the right words trapping themselves at the back of my throat. "I want you in it," she met my gaze, her eyes shimmering like the stars above us. "What if he brings this all crashing down? We cross that bridge when we get there." My resolve was shaky, but I steadied myself in the face of her despair. "I can't go back to life before. I refuse to let their expectations drown out who I am." A moment of silence lingered between us as we exchanged unspoken fears, understanding each other's vulnerability. There was something so moving about standing with someone who shared my inner turmoil, and I felt an unexpected warmth blossom in my chest, but then, from behind us, the heavy door creaked open. I turned to see my father emerge, his eyes finding ours with a mixture of anger and hurt. "You're out here instead of preparing for what's to come." "It's my life too," I countered, my voice firm as I turned to face him. "I will not allow you to make a choice that could ruin everything," he snapped. The gleam of his arrogance struck like a lash in the cool night air, igniting the tension further. Just as I felt myself poised on the edge of defiance, the unmistakable sound of a car rolling up the long driveway cut through the stillness. My breath caught. My mother had arrived. "Speak of the devil," I muttered under my breath, dread flooding through me. "Wait." Valerie's hand reached out, gripping my arm. "Are you ready for this?" "No. Not even close." I took a step back, unsure if I felt brave or terrified. "But I have to face it." As my mother stepped from the car, her silhouette unmistakable, I felt my composure crumbling beneath her gaze. She wore an impenetrable expression, one I couldn't decipher, and the very sight of her tugged at the remnants of the life I used to know. "Jonathan." Her voice sliced through the air, sharp and commanding. I straightened, forcing my pounding heart to slow as I turned toward her. "Mom," she interrupted me, the storm in her eyes brewing. "Don't even start. We need to talk." Now, her words fell hard around us, the gravity pulling me closer to the precipice I'd tried to avoid. With Valerie still by my side, I braced myself for the onslaught that awaited. I couldn't help but wonder if tonight would reveal the truth about my family's dark secrets, or worse, ultimately extinguish the fragile flicker of hope that had just ignited. As we stepped inside to face the impending confrontation, I realized I might be fighting not just for my freedom, but for the very pulse of my identity. Would Valerie stand with me when the storm finally broke, or would she retreat in fear from the tempest I'd unwittingly invited into our lives? Anxiety twisted in my gut as uncertainty loomed, a dark specter on the horizon, waiting to reveal the depth of my choices. The cacophony of the party faded behind us as I stepped into the grand hall, feeling the weight of an unseen audience pressing in. Valerie's hand slipped into mine, her warmth a small comfort against the icy anger radiating from my mother. The glowing chandeliers above cast a soft light, but beneath their sparkles, the air felt thick with the weight of expectations. "Jonathan, I don't understand why you insist on making this harder than it needs to be," my mother began, her voice a calculated cadence that threatened to break the fragile bond one had with Valerie. "It's not my intention to make anything hard, Mom. I just want what?" she hissed, stepping toward me, fury barely restrained. "To live in a fantasy. To think you can just be with someone like her. You're throwing away everything I've built for you, everything." Each word was a poisonous dart, but I refused to let them pierce my resolve. "Everything you've built?" I shot back, the words escaping before I could stop them. "Or everything you want? My life is not a business plan. I have to live it." A collective gasp seemed to echo from my father, who stood closer to the door, arms crossed, eyes narrowing as if measuring my defiance. I caught a glimpse of Valerie beside me, her expression a mix of pride and fear, and it fueled the fire within me. I could almost hear her heartbeat synchronizing with mine, a desperate rhythm urging me to fight for more. Your little rebellion is going to cost you. My mother's voice was a thunderstorm, and in that moment, I could feel the weight of generations crashing down, burdening me with sins not of my making. Suddenly, Valerie stepped in front of me. Mrs. Cavendish, please understand, this isn't just about him. It's about both of us and what we want from life. Why does it have to be so complicated? Her voice quivered, but she stood firm, embodying an unexpected bravery that took my breath away. Then my mother's gaze flickered to Valerie, a mix of surprise and contempt painting her features. You think you can just waltz into this family and demand understanding? You're an outsider. You don't know what you're up against. Stepping back, I sensed the impending rupture of my mother's carefully curated world, the one that had always felt foreign, yet now churned with desperation. I looked to Valerie, and in that moment, I saw something in her eyes I had never anticipated: resilience. Maybe I am an outsider, she replied, unwavering. But I love your son. Doesn't that matter? Shouldn't love matter above all this? The silence that followed filled the air with a tension so stark it threatened to shatter. My mother's features tightened, as if bracing against an impending storm. Love? She scoffed, her laugh brittle as glass. Love doesn't pay the bills or keep up appearances. This is not a fairy tale. You're making a choice, Jonathan. Do you understand what you're risking? Our happiness, I said softly, feeling my father's piercing gaze still boring into me, ready to strike with an unyielding edge if I faltered. Isn't that worth something? In this tempest, the fragile thread between us felt as if it might snap, yet still, I held on to Valerie's hand, grounding myself in her warmth. It was a silent pact forged in the face of adversity, a promise that we wouldn't give up. Then, just when I thought the tension would engulf us entirely, a soft voice broke through the storm. Jonathan, dear, let's not forget who we are. Marissa, my aunt and my mother's sister, entered the fray, her gentle demeanor a stark contrast to our escalating conflict. She had always been the whisper of kindness in our sharply defined family, a reminder that not all was darkness. Her presence was a glimmer of the hope I desperately sought. Marissa, now is not the time, my mother interjected, her voice tending low, a warning that echoed through the marble hall. Why not? Marissa replied, unfazed. Perhaps this is precisely the time. Family should never be about fear. Jonathan, face your truth. Don't let the weight of others drown your voice. I was stunned by her support, its effect washing over me like a reassuring tide. Did she truly grasp the depth of our storm? Are you willing to sacrifice your happiness for a facade? She continued, her gaze now landing on my mother. You once told me to choose love above all. What happened to that mantra? My mother stiffened, the fight momentarily suspended as the walls of her fortress began to tremble. It was as if the ground was shifting beneath her, threatening to unravel the carefully crafted image she had clung to for so long. Valerie held my hand tighter, and suddenly, an unexpected flicker of determination ignited within me. Mom, I love Valerie. If this is who I'm meant to be, then I'm willing to face whatever comes next. The air froze. My mother's jaw clenched, and I could see the tumult brewing within her. Then, with a slow, deliberate breath, she took a step back, her fantasy world teetering on the brink of collapse, but as I stood there, defiant, I felt the precariousness of that hope. What awaited was unknown, and even as the hint of reconciliation flickered in the air, there loomed a darker undercurrent. Then, Jonathan, my mother said, her voice dangerously calm, perhaps you should also know that in choosing Valerie, you are not just risking my approval. There are ties that bind this family, and I fear you may have overlooked a crucial one. The rumblings of something ominous floated on her words, an unseen threat swirling around me, and suddenly a chilling uncertainty gripped my heart. What could be more sinister than the clash of wills before me? What unfathomable stakes had I walked into? As my mother's gaze hardened, I felt the ground beneath me shift again. We were on the precipice of revelation, one that could alter everything, reshaping the landscape of my fractured life. And as the gathering storm thundered nearer, the promise of change began to spiral out of my grasp, threatening to wipe away everything I held dear. The tension lingered in the grand hall like a trapped breath, suspense thick and electric. My mother's warning echoed in my ears, the implications unraveling in my mind like a tapestry coming undone. I felt as though I had been walking on a tightrope, and now, beneath me, the ground quaked ominously. What do you mean by that? I finally managed to ask, my voice steadier than my heart. Why mother's gaze held me captive, her determination fused with an unsettling grimness. You may think your choices are simple, Jonathan, but the world you're entering carries weight far beyond your understanding. There are consequences, intricacies that connect our familial ties. Valerie squeezed my hand, a silent plea for calm, but her eyes shone with the same determination that had ignited during our stand against my mother. Yet, alongside that resolve was a flicker of fear, an unspoken question swirling between us. What could she possibly mean? Be careful who you choose to defy. My mother's tone shifted into something softer yet more penetrating. When you rebel, you awaken ghosts who have a stake in this family. And they don't play by the same rules. The air felt charged as my aunt's supportive presence was dimmed by the chilling weight of my mother's insinuations. Ghosts? I echoed, trying to grasp the truth lurking in her words. What ghosts? Family secrets are often buried deep, she replied, her voice threading the air with a tension that twisted my insides. We have always shielded you from the darker truths of our lineage. Truths that could unravel you. Enough. My father's voice cut through the ominous haze, a grim protector stepping forward. His arms unfolded as if his very presence could safeguard us from whatever shadows my mother had summoned. This is not the moment for cryptic metaphors or hidden threats. Speak plainly, Kelly. My mother's gaze narrowed, caught between defensiveness and resignation. The power dynamic fluctuated, and I could see the depth of hidden grievances stirring beneath the surface. Even my father, typically the stoic figure, seemed caught in this emotional battle, haunted by choices he had made and didn't make. Turning back to me, my mother continued, you think love conquers all until the day you wake up to find you've sacrificed everything for it. It can tear families apart, Jonathan. And in your pursuit, you may unearth the very burdens you don't fathom are linked to your blood. Are you saying I should abandon the people I care about because of a legacy of fear? I felt valor rising in me, a wave against the raging storm. Surely, love was a force more powerful than the shackles of the past. Jonathan, you may not see it now, but there are paths you cannot stray from without consequence, my mother insisted, desperation curling her words. Valerie may seem like a safe haven, but she may carry more turbulence than you expect her than she knows. A sense of foreboding twisted in my gut. I caught a glimpse of Valerie's face, illuminated in the golden light but shadowed by uncertainty. Could my mother be right? Was there something lurking beneath her surface that I hadn't yet seen? Just tell me, Valerie said, voice quavering as she stood straighter, brimming with courage. If this is anything about me, it's not you, Valerie, my mother intervened, dismissively. It's the generations of unresolved resentment, the decisions buried so deeply you could drown trying to uncover them. Do you want that? Do you want to know what lies waiting to pounce? An uneasy silence enveloped us. The thread of hidden truths weighed heavily and coiled around my heart like a vice. I want to know. My words tumbled out with a fearless fervor. If love meant exposing the darkness within ourselves and our families, then I saw no other path. Love isn't supposed to reside in shadows, Valerie whispered, eyes wide with both fear and fierceness. If there are ghosts, let's face them together. I admire your bravery, my mother conceded, albeit reluctantly. But remember, bravery can lead to devastation when wedded to ignorance. Protect the parts of your heart that still wish to believe. Before I could reply, a sudden interruption jolted through the air as Marissa stepped forward again, her voice cutting through the weight of uncertainty. Every family has its troubles, Kelly. But we must remember to hold on to the love that sustained us. Jonathan, the choice must always come from a place of truth, not fear. The tension shifted slightly but still felt like a string pulled taut, ready to snap. The glare of the chandeliers glimmered like the forbidden puzzles of our family history resting behind us, waiting to be unearthed. Then, out of nowhere, my phone buzzed in my pocket, startling everyone into silence. The screen blazed with an unknown number, the answer laying just beyond my reach. The vibrating anticipation churned my stomach. I should take this, I muttered absent-mindedly, but as I reached for my phone, my hands trembled. I was barely keeping my head above water in this sea of uncertainty, and yet, something told me this call was pivotal. As I accepted the call, silence fell heavily all around me. "Hello?" I asked, my voice cracking under the weight of the moment. "Jonathan?" A brief whisper on the line sent a chill racing down my spine. "You don't know me, but there are things you need to now think about your family that could change everything." My heart raced with a mixture of dread and anticipation. As the words hung in the air, the ground beneath my feet felt like it might finally give way. The veil of reality was about to slip, and all I could do was hold on tightly to Valerie's hand, praying that whatever truth came next would not tear us apart. The tremor of uncertainty swelled within me, pulling me under as I listened to the voice on the other end of the line. It felt as though the world had narrowed down to just this moment, wrapping me in shadows that blurred the lines of familiarity. I could sense Valerie's fingers tightening around mine in shared anxiety, her warmth somehow a comfort amidst the unease. "What do you mean?" I pressed, trying to steady my breath. "What could change everything?" There was a brief silence, then the voice continued, laced with urgency. "Your mother isn't the only one who understands the weight of your family's choices, Jonathan. You need to be careful over the choices you make and who you trust. There are deeper currents flowing through your family's history, currents that could threaten more than just your love life." That I could feel my mother's eyes boring a hole into my soul, a mix of fear and something akin to regret shimmering across her face. Marissa's comforting hand on my shoulder barely registered as the reality of those words settled in. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my heart pounding with the need for clarity. Was this call a warning, or was it just another ghost beckoning me down a perilous path? "Just someone who knows what it's like to live in the shadows," the voice replied somberly. "And someone who wants you to make a choice that doesn't destroy you. Don't trust everything you're told." The line crackled as they concluded, "Find me if you want to know the truth. But be prepared for the weight of it." The click of the call disconnecting punctured the air, and I stood there, reeling. The heaviness of possibilities washed over me, a maze of treachery and truth where every turn could lead to discovery or disaster. "What was that about?" my father asked, his expression rigid. "Someone claiming to know our family," I replied, my voice barely more than a whisper. They said I should be wary." Marissa interrupted, surprising me with the vehemence of her response. "You don't need to listen to that nonsense, Jonathan. People will always try to manipulate you when they feel your family is vulnerable." But my mother had already crossed over to stand in front of me, an all-knowing glimmer in her eyes that made my heart race. "This isn't just nonsense, Jonathan," she whispered with grave intensity. "You must be cautious. There are individuals connected to our family who wield power in ways you can't fathom, people I made a pact to keep you shielded from." "Then why didn't you tell me?" I shot back, feeling a torrent of anger coursing through me. Was I supposed to just live in ignorance? "Is that why you warned me? What else are you hiding?" Her expression softened, the sharp edges of her defiance blurring into something more vulnerable. "I thought I could protect you by keeping you away from the dark past. It was a mistake, but it was made out of love." Valerie, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally stepped closer to me, her voice barely above a murmur. "Whatever it is, we can face it together, Jonathan. You're not alone." A warmth spread from her words, an echo of hope amidst the turmoil. Yet the sensation was short-lived as the shadows stirred again, whispering warnings of the truth yet to come. "Do you really want to know what's hidden?" my mother asked, her eyes locking onto mine with fierce earnestness. "The deeper you delve, the more you risk losing what you have." The statement hung in the air, heavy and foreboding, and I could feel my resolve waver for just a moment. Was there a cost to my pursuit of truth that would be too great to bear? Without giving myself a chance to overthink, I replied, "I do want to know. I need to know." "Very well," my mother sighed, staring past me as if contemplating the past. "If you're set on it, then you should start where it all began, at the old estate, the word sent a wave of unease crashing over me. The old estate had been a myth woven into our family stories, a ghostly legacy whispered among relatives with a sense of dread. But it's been abandoned for years. Why would we go there? Because that's where the truth has been buried, she replied, crimson hues blooming in her cheeks, and where you might encounter the last remnants of the ghosts I warned you about. You want the truth? I swallowed hard, weighing the dread of what I might uncover against the pull of curiosity and defiance. Yes, I insisted again. I want to face it head-on. Valerie tightened her grip, determination shimmering in her eyes. Then we'll go together, she stated firmly, a small flicker of hope glimmering in the midst of the shifting shadows. But it's dangerous, my father interjected, a piercing worry etched across his face. And it's my decision, I replied, my voice stronger than I felt. If there's a choice to avert catastrophe, I have to at least try. Very well. Just promise me you'll be careful. My mother's expression was tumultuous, somewhere between despair and hope, as if she realized the path I was choosing could also lead to devastation. In that moment, the air thickened with unsaid words, unacknowledged fears, and heavy burdens of love, all swirling around us like a storm waiting to break. And just as I was about to step toward whatever clarity awaited me, Valerie's phone buzzed, shattering the tense silence. Sorry, it's my mom, she whispered, her look momentarily distracted. As she checked the screen, her expression shifted from concern to horror. Oh no, she breathed, backing away from me, eyes wide. What's wrong? Panic crept into my voice. Jonathan, you need to listen to me. We can't go to the estate, not tonight. My mother just texted that something has happened to your father. He's missing. My heart dropped as the world tilted dangerously beneath me, the fear of the unknown crashing into my resolve. Here lay the boundaries of an uncharted path I had pushed myself onto, where shadows danced with uncertainty, far darker than anything I had imagined. The news knocked the breath from my lungs like a physical blow. Missing? My mind raced, darting through a labyrinth of fear and chaos. I glanced at my father, who stood frozen in a state of disbelief, his face paling as the weight of Valerie's words settled in the heavy air. My heart pounded against my ribcage, a frantic drum beating an urgent rhythm. What do you mean he's missing? I demanded, struggling to keep my voice steady. What happened? Where did he go? Valerie shook her head, her own desperation mirrored in her eyes. I don't know. My mother just texted that he didn't come home from the office. He was working late, and she's been trying to reach him since dinner. Marissa's breathing grew shallow, her hands trembling as she grasped the edge of the countertop, as if it was the only thing anchoring her in this turbulent reality. We need to call the police, she murmured, her voice hoarse with fear. No, my father cut in sharply, a slight tremor betraying his composed demeanor. We have to handle this ourselves. The look he shot my mother was one filled with a mix of resolve and despair, as if unsaid truths hung heavily between them. Dad, what do you mean? I interjected, panic clawing at my throat. How can we handle this without help? He exhaled deeply, his eyes locking onto mine. Your mother was right, there are things we can't involve the police in. You may not understand fully, Jonathan, but there are shadows that extend beyond this moment. This isn't the first time things like this have happened in our family. Valerie stepped closer to me, her voice firm yet soft. Jonathan, whatever is going on, we need to be smart. If your father is in danger, we have to think clearly. Then we need to find him now, I insisted, ready to leap into action. If there are others involved, we can't waste time waiting for answers. We need to go where? My mother interjected. To the estate. You yourself said it could be dangerous. There was an uneasy silence, the room buzzing with a tension that felt palpable. I could see the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. The very words I had longed to uncover had now twisted into something dark and foreboding. It might give us a clue, I replied, my voice quieter but resolute. Maybe whoever took him left a trace. Or maybe somehow, he's connected to what you were hiding about our past. Marissa held my gaze, a flash of understanding lighting up her features. We can start there, Jonathan, at least. I don't think we have a choice, then it's settled, my father announced, though with a hint of reluctance. Well, split up. Marissa and I will check his office. You two head to the estate. Keep your phones on. Before I could protest, he was already on the phone, barking commands and organizing a makeshift search team that I somehow knew wouldn't include law enforcement. The urgency embedded in the air propelled me into motion, leading me outside, where a wave of chilly night air struck my skin like a splash of ice water. The world around us felt deceptively normal, shrouded in silence that contrasted maddeningly with the clamor in my heart. As we climbed into Valerie's car, the reality of the darkness ahead surged through me. What if we don't find him? I asked, the haunting prospect tugging at my insides. We will, she said, her determination a fragile light in the surrounding gloom. We have to hope. The drive felt both eternal and fleeting, moments stretching into lifetimes while the night air thickened with unseen threats. The estate loomed ahead, an ancient silhouette etched against the starless sky, a reminder of secrets that lay buried beneath decayed walls and shattered dreams. Once parked, I hesitated, anxiety coiling tighter in my stomach. Do you think he's here? I whispered, as shadows flickered at the corners of my mind, ghosts begging to be acknowledged. And no matter where he is, we can't back away now, Valerie urged, her hand strong on my shoulder. Well, face whatever this is together. With her encouragement, I stepped forward, the crunch of gravel underfoot echoing in the eerie stillness of the night. The house loomed larger as we approached, a dark mystery pulsating with possibility. With each step, dread clung to my skin, mingling with hope, an impossible duality that felt both terrifying and necessary. Inside, I flipped on my phone's flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness like a knife. The interior was far more dilapidated than the stories had suggested, dust motes dancing in the air, shadows cavorting in corners as if hiding from the truth we sought. Where do we start? Valerie whispered, glancing around with palpable apprehension. Before I could respond, a muffled sound echoed from deep within the house, a low groan. My heart surged anew, a mix of fear and urgency driving my resolve. Did you hear that? I barely breathed, eyes wide. Yes, she exhaled, grip tightening on my arm. It came from the basement. I hesitated, my mind racing with possibilities. What if the sound belonged to my father? What if it was someone or something else, lurking in the shadows, waiting to ambush us? We have to check it out, I insisted, steeling myself against the onslaught of fear. As we descended the creaking stairs, the air around us thickened, a palpable tension wrapping us deeper in its grasp. The darkness roared like a living entity, and with every cautious step, the looming presence felt like an echo of the an unwelcome reminder of the secrets lurking in my family's history. When we reached the bottom, a flicker caught my eye, an old lantern swinging gently on rusted chains, casting free-falling shadows that danced eerily along the cold stone walls. And then, at the far end of the basement, a figure emerged from the darkness slumped against the wall, disheveled and lost in despair. Jonathan, the voice croaked, trembling with an unmistakable familiarity. It was my father. The world swirled around me, a chaos of emotions erupting like fireworks in a night sky. My father was slumped against the wall, looking smaller and more vulnerable than I had ever seen him. The man who had always been a fortress, unyielding and strong, now appeared broken and gasping for air, his eyes filled with shadows that hinted at unspeakable horrors. Dad! I cried, rushing to him, my heart pounding like a war drum. Valerie followed close behind, her own breath hitching in her throat. He looked up at me, and for a moment, the layers of fear and confusion melted away, exposing the raw vulnerability underneath. Jonathan, you shouldn't have come, he rasped, the words barely emerging from his cracked lips. Neither should you. I shot back, my voice laced with a mixture of anger and relief. What happened? We were worried sick. Why didn't you call us? His gaze flickered to Valerie and back, a silent exchange that stirred unease. It's not safe for you here, not anymore. What do you mean? She took a step closer, concern mixing with anger. You're here. We can help you. No. You don't understand, he muttered, gripping the edge of the wall as if it was the only thing keeping him anchored. There are forces at play that should remain buried. I thought I could deal with this on my own. I thought I could protect you. That my throat constricted as realization dawned. Are you saying you're being hunted? Something like that, he replied, his voice a haunted whisper. There are debts that have come due, Jonathan. Things I've kept from you for too long. The weight of his words crashed over me, an avalanche of dread that tangled with my emotions. What debts? What have you done? Each word trembled as it left my lips, the implications terrifying and profound. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could utter another word, a crash reverberated from above, a deafening sound that sliced through the thick tension like a knife. My heart raced, adrenaline pumping through my veins. We have to leave, now. Valerie grabbed my father's arm, helping him to his feet. We can't just stay here. Let's get out. He shook his head, suddenly fierce. No. I need you to listen to me. His hands gripped my shoulders, his eyes intense and imploring. You need to know that all of this everything just connected to our family's past. The reason I'm being hunted, it's because of the choices we all made, even your mother. The truth is more dangerous than you realize. Stop talking in riddles. I shouted, frustration coursing through me. It was then, amid the chaos looming outside, that I noticed something shimmering across the dimly lit room, a small metal box tucked beneath a damp board. Recognition pulsed in my veins. What is that? I pointed at it, the urgency of the moment sucking away my fears for just an instant. My father's face paled further, his grip tightening on my arms. Leave it. We don't have time. Valerie glanced between us, weighing the decision like a scale tipping wildly in the balance. Jonathan, we need to focus on getting him out of here. We can come back for it, but the curiosity and dread pulled me in two directions, one toward my father, begging for answers, and the other toward the box promising secrets. Whatever you're hiding, Dad, it can't be worse than what's happening right now. We need the whole truth. In that moment, a beating at the door echoed through the basement, a chilling reminder that we were no longer safe. The oppressive sound of footsteps thundering above us sent a shiver racing down my spine. We're running out of time. Valerie's eyes flicked from the door to the box, desperation lining her features. Jonathan, please. If you're going to get answers, let's not do it here. A rush of decision ripped through me. I couldn't abandon my father to whatever darkness pursued him, but there was a flicker of hope, a fragile dynamic that whispered maybe, just maybe, unraveling the truth could save us all. I'll grab it. Just hold on. As I dashed toward the box, heart racing against the pounding footsteps, I could hear my father's voice imploring me, Jonathan, no. We leave now. But the pull of the unknown was overwhelming, and I clutched the cool metal as I lifted the lid, every second stretching like a taut wire ready to snap. Inside, waiting in the dark, lay papers, documents that felt heavy with implications, an old key, and a photograph curling at the edges. That my heart leaped. It was an image of my father, the same age as I was now, standing beside a woman I barely recognized. The resemblance was uncanny, yet her expression was one of discontent, laden with secrets guarded too closely, a spectral visage of the past. That a scream echoed from above, slicing through the air like glass shattering, pitched, frantic. The sound sent chills racing down my spine. Jonathan! Get out! My father shouted, shoving me toward the door. Now, the footsteps were closing in, dread settling in my stomach like a stone. In that moment, I faced a choice: the contents of the box or my father's safety. The clock was running out, and one of those paths could lead to heartbreak while the other could unravel everything I thought I knew about my family. I turned and bolted, heart pounding, while the door splintered and cracked with muffled shouts above. Whatever lay behind that box could wait. I could feel the surge of something much darker brewing just beyond our fragile grasp for safety. The weight of fatherly secrets remained heavy on my mind as I stumbled up the stairs, uncertainty gripping my heart in a vice. What if this was just the beginning of something far worse, a consequence of my own choices as well? Outside, the night still held its stillness, but I knew it wouldn't last. The world beyond awaited, secrets lurking in the shadows, and I had opened the door to a darkness I could never have prepared for. The air felt electric, charged with a mix of fear and urgency as we burst through the door and into the cool night. My father was limping, each step echoing his struggle, a fracture in my heart blooming as I realized just how fragile he was. I had always seen him as invincible, the bedrock of my childhood, yet here he was barefoot, wearied, a man unraveling in the shadows. Where do we go? Valerie's voice trembled next to me as we stumbled into the open space of the moonlit yard, trees casting long shadows that felt alive with menace. Anywhere but here, my father gasped, his breaths labored and pained. We have to find a safe place, a place where we can talk. That I looked around, my instincts battling against the rising tide of panic. The chaos of our escape had disoriented me, and there were too many unknowns lurking just beyond our sight. What about the car? I asked, desperate to regain control of the situation. There isn't time, he replied, urgency slicing through his words. We need to head to the old cabin. They want think to look for us there. The cabin? Valerie questioned, uncertainty lacing her voice. It was a place only whispered about in family lore, a relic of years past, distant yet ingrained in our shared history. But now. My father's voice held a weight that silenced any further protests. With no other choice, we sprinted through the thick underbrush, the night air thick with dread as we darted between trees, the world both a refuge and a prison. The adrenaline coursed through me, but it was also laced with confusion. The closer we got to the cabin, the more questions began to burn in the back of my mind. Dad, what debts are you talking about? What connections are you hiding? Focus on staying alive. He snapped, glancing back toward the house, shadows swirling in the spaces between the trees like predators stalking their prey. I promise I'll explain everything. Just trust me for a little while longer. Trust. A commodity thinner than the air around us, wavering as I fought the doubts clawing at my insides. My father, once my protector, was now standing at the edge of the abyss, taking me with him. I clung to Valerie's hand, a lifeline in the storm, feeling the tremor in her palm mirror my own fears. That we reached the cabin, a decrepit structure swallowed by a haze of ivy and forgotten memories. It loomed over us, a ghost of the past that had once promised safety. As we slipped inside, the air thick with the scent of old wood and musty secrets, I couldn't shake the feeling that this sanctuary was as precarious as my father's hold on reality. Lock the door, he instructed, his voice a low hiss that cast an urgent spell over us. Valerie twisted the rusty handle, the familiar creak shocking us into silence. As I stepped further inside, the shadows morphed around us, reality intertwining with the stories I had heard in whisper-soft generations tangled in conflicts and hidden truths. I felt the burden of every word left unspoken, vibrating beneath the floorboards, echoing my father's silence. Sit, he ordered, gesturing to a weathered table in the corner as he leaned against the wall, clearly exhausted. I glanced at Valerie, mutual concern nodding our expressions as we settled into chairs that felt about to give way. That I know this is all overwhelming, my father began, weariness settling in the creases of his forehead. But there are things you both need to understand about our family's past. That we don't have time for roundabout stories, I urged, desperation edging my tone. We need to know what we're up against. He hesitated, eyes drifting to the window as if expecting the darkness to breach the threshold. There are people after me, Jonathan, dangerous people. They believe I owe them for choices I made long before you were born. Choices involving your mother. Why didn't you tell us? Valerie interjected, her voice shaking. Why didn't you trust us with the truth? Because some truths can shatter lives, he replied, anguish flickering in his features, a chasm opening between us. Your mother, she was a part of this world, a world I tried to shield you from. She knew I was tangled in it, yet went along, and when she left, she made sure you had a chance of escaping this fate. When I couldn't. The weight of his revelations cloaked us in silence, the shadows leaping in the corners as what he spoke sank into the marrow of my bones. You're saying we're in danger because of her? I whispered, the words bitter on my tongue. Because of you. He looked at me, an unbearable sadness etched across his brow. That darkness found us before I even had a chance to run. I wanted to protect you from all of it, from her choices as much as mine, but it seems that fate isn't on our side. That a loud bang rattled the door, sending jolts through my limbs, and for a moment, we froze, fear ensnaring us like a trap. "They're here," Valerie's breath hitched, her eyes darting towards the sound, betraying the panic that split my heart. "Hide!" my father commanded, urgency sharpening his voice as he ushered us toward a small cupboard in the corner, worn and barely standing. "It'll distract them." "Just stay quiet, Dad." "No," I protested, a rising tide of dread threatening to drown me in helplessness. "You can't face them alone, I'm already lost, Jonathan," he said softly, eyes piercing into mine with a mix of surrender and fierce resolve. "But you have a chance. You both do. No." I shook my head vehemently, as if I could somehow undo the situation. But the door buckled again, and in that terrifying moment, I understood that he was willing to sacrifice everything to protect us, to keep the dark past from swallowing our future whole. With trembling hands, Valerie and I slipped into the closet-like space, darkness enveloping us and the weight of abandonment settling over my heart. I could hear nothing beyond the hollow thump of blood in my ears, and in that silence, the terror rose like a tide. The door creaked open, and I held my breath, a lump in my throat choking back the words I desperately wanted to scream. The unknown confronted us, and whatever was about to unfold could seal our fate. Just then, I felt something sharp press into my palm, the forgotten photograph from the box. I clenched it tightly, a fragile flicker of hope amid the gathering storm, knowing that the answers I sought could alter everything. I had questions, knee-deep in secrets, and all I could do was wait for the truth to unravel, whenever it chose to show its face, even if it came at a price I couldn't yet fathom. The shadows clung to us in the tiny cupboard, the air thick with anticipation and dread. All I could hear was the rapid thudding of my heart and the small, scared breaths that echoed beside me. My father's sacrifice hung heavily between us, a living ghost whose presence threatened to suffocate the fragile hope we clung to. Then came footsteps, heavy, deliberate. A chilling silence followed just before the blaring chaos shattered the moment. "Where is he?" a voice called out, sharp and commanding, invigorated by a sense of dominion. I couldn't see, but I could feel their presence radiate an unfathomable fear that threatened to devour us whole. My father's breath was unsteady, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of doubt. Was this truly a battle that could be fought? I held the photograph tightly, my fingers fumbling over the edges. I realized at that moment, as I clutched the fraying corners of the picture, that it wasn't just a relic of the past, it was a map leading to the truth I so desperately needed to unearth. I thought of Valerie, her presence beside me both a fortitude and a testament to the love that sparked amid the danger. This was not the end. Not yet. When a loud crash echoed outside, I jumped, my heart racing. "Check the basement," a voice barked. Panic flooded through me, but behind the fear, there was something sharper, something that burned with determination. I could not let fear dictate my choices or the choices of those I loved. The footsteps grew louder, rushing toward the cupboard. "Dad!" I wanted to shout, to burst forth and face whatever awaited us, but the oppressive fear was a weight I could not lift. The darkness surged closer, and I knew that if I didn't act now, we'd become trapped in the shadows forever. Glancing at Valerie, an unspoken understanding flickered in her eyes. I took a deep breath, willing every ounce of courage to push through the fear that we could lose everything. "We have to go," I whispered to her. "We have to find a way to rescue him," she nodded, and with one last glance into the abyss of uncertainty pressing down upon us, we retreated deeper into the cupboard, forcing ourselves to remain silent, waiting as one of the intruders approached. Their shadowed figure loomed menacingly against the wall, the echo of my father's earlier words ringing in my head. I could picture him, the man who had loved me fiercely yet had carried the burdens of our family's past. It was time to shatter this veil of silence, to discover the threads that bound our lives together, and unravel them for good. No. The voice exclaimed, full of frustration. "He's here somewhere. I can sense it." It was like a jolt of electricity surged through my veins. As they rummaged through the remnants of failure, I could feel my body responding to the heat of survival, igniting a deep-rooted resilience I never knew I had. "Let's go," I repeated, urgency bubbling to the surface. With a decisive push, I nudged the cupboard door just barely ajar, praying to catch a glimpse of the unfolding chaos. Valerie gripped my wrist, her fingers like steel, grounding me. At the heart of the frantic noise, I could see my father, haggard yet unyielding, standing against the wall, resolve etched into his features as he faced the intruders. "You won't take me," he warned, his voice rife with steely determination. "You'll have to kill me first." The tension spilled over as anger swirled, blending with hushed whispers of negotiation. The darkness that had marked our family for so long threatened to consume him, but in his eyes, I felt the flicker of hope. He believed in our fight. Valerie squeezed my hand, and I whispered, "We can't hide any longer. He needs us." It was our moment, whether we were ready for it or not. Pushing the cupboard door open, we stepped out from the shadows, fully into the light, or whatever light there was left in this terrifying reality. My heart raced with adrenaline as I confronted the assembled group, a mix of familiar faces and others I could only assume were the ghosts of our family's past. "Jonathan," my father's voice wobbled yet remained steadfast, the surprise on his face was palpable, balancing between fear and relief. "Get back, no!" I shouted, forcing my voice to steady as I felt the weight of Valerie's solidarity beside me. "We can't be afraid anymore. They can't tear us apart. Whatever this is, we will face it together." The momentum shifted in that moment, and for the first time, I felt the strength of our unity rise to meet the tension. The intruders paused, taken aback by the audacity of our defiance. It was my father's earlier words about protecting what mattered most that lit the fire within me, emboldening every choice I was about to make. "Jonathan, stay out of this," one of the intruders warned, trying to regain control, but the resolve I felt surged through my veins like molten lava. "No more secrets. No more lies," I declared, stepping forward, my voice ringing clear. "We are the ones who control our story. Whatever debts need paying, let's pay them together." That I could see the surprise flicker beneath the glimmer of terror in their eyes. It was a pivotal moment, my father studying me with astonishment, a father's pride threading itself through the agony he had faced. "Listen to your son," he urged, finally released from fear's grasp, as a new wind unfurled his words. The tide swirled with the power of love and courage, rising above the fray as we stood united in purpose. "These secrets don't just belong to me, they are ours. But we must face them all of us." That I end the chaos of that moment, I seized the photograph I had clutched earlier, holding it high for the intruders to see. This is our past. It doesn't need to be a curse anymore." The silence fell heavy, like the dust motes swirling in the air, each orb pregnant with possibility, when a voice broke through the stillness. It came from a figure lurking behind, their expression a mask of emotions warring beneath the surface. "Jonathan, that picture. It's proof that your history runs deeper than you think." The statement had ripples of unsettling truth that hung in the air, demanding acknowledgement. "What do you mean?" My gut twisted with every syllable, anticipating the truths that would shatter even as they connected the fragments of the lives I thought I understood. "Your past," the masked figure replied solemnly, "is tied to a lineage steeped in darkness, choices echoing through generations. Unraveling it is a peril, but it will set you free." As my father's eyes widened, dread mingled with understanding. The shadows swam around us, an unspoken agreement passing silently. This was no longer merely about power, it extended beyond bloodlines and legacies. It became a fighting anthem for truths waiting to be unveiled, and in that defining moment, as I stood firmly in unity with Valerie and my father, I made a vow not only to myself but to the twisted legacy that had brought us here. "We're ready to face whatever lies ahead," I declared, my voice echoing through the oppressive silence. Together, the power of those words hung heavily, and as I stared into the faces surrounding us, angry, confused, a mix of resentment and uncertainty, I knew there was no turning back. Every choice would lead us closer to either ruin or redemption, and every secret unearthed would ripple through our family and into the future. We had redefined the narrative, refusing to be victims of our history, and now the heart of our fight beat within me, a reckoning that challenged the darkness, not just for my family but for the generations to come. As the echoes of my declaration lingered in the charged atmosphere, I felt a rush of strength surge through me. They had awakened the fire that would allow us to finally confront the scars we had borne in silence. It was time to embrace the truth one way or another. Yet as the weight of acceptance settled around us, I felt a flicker of worry. If ghost stories were to loom large over the choices we'd made, could we withstand the tempest that awaited us? But the answer was here, nestled in the embrace of our love and the strength of our bonds, not just shadows in the background, but living flames that would rise through the darkness, illuminating our path. Together, we would write a new story, one fueled by bravery rather than burden, made to shatter every chain that threatened to bind us. The final choice lay just ahead, and in that moment, I understood that in our quest for the truth, the greatest battle would be not just against the ghosts of our past, but for the future we wished to shape. We would reclaim our lives etched with love, steadfast against whatever lay ahead, and propelled by the courage to stand together in our fight. And from that moment forward, I knew, no matter what came next, we would emerge unbroken, every revelation bearing witness to the fierce love that transcended even the darkest shadows of our past. Let's go, I whispered to my father and Valerie, the taste of determination mingling with the crisp night air as we backed away from the haunting shadows enveloping us. In defiance of the world demanding limits and barriers, we would rise anew, unyielding under the weight of truth, ready to shatter the chains tethering our hearts and finally embrace the brilliant potential that lay ahead. And together, we stepped boldly into the light, ready at last to reclaim the narrative of our story.